All right. The most important thing to share at the top is the way that the website is generally arranged. And along the top white row here, you'll see resources that are specifically geared toward both prospective and existing approved vendors, designees, and EEC subcontractors in the program. We're going to spend a little bit of time here. On the blue row are generally some materials oriented toward customers, consumers, and other stakeholders, but they also hold valuable resources for solar vendors as well too. So we'll spend some time there. So let's get right to it. I'll spend just a moment at the home page to orient everybody. We begin with in Welcome to Illinois Shines, including some quick links to the benefits of solar. We'll talk through that, how to participate in the program, and some other valuable quick links. We set some context by sharing Illinois' ambitious and important clean energy goals and renewable energy targets through the Renewable Portfolio Standard. And we share some of the benefits of solar, environmental, economic, and financial. We talk very briefly about ways to participate in Illinois Shines through the two primary project categories, distributed generation, community solar, and more. And then we do share some quick links and resources. The quick link to the Prevailing Wage Hub is present, a form to express interest in hearing from the program, and then finally a footer that remains consistent throughout the website. All right, so welcome to Illinois Shines. Let's get to it. As mentioned, the top row is really geared toward prospective and existing solar developers that are interested in the Illinois Shines program. The first tab is vendors and designees, and we have some resources here to orient you toward what it means to be an approved vendor or designee in the program and some of the steps required. Specific, we share some information about the equity eligible contractor category. We share an overview of the equity accountability system and some key resources and the Prevailing Wage Hub. So let's take a quick look. We want to explain how the approved vendor model came to be in Illinois Shines through legislation and what it means to be an approved vendor. So you'll see some information here, including the participation as a counterparty to a renewable energy credit or REC credit contract. That's a primary role of participating in Illinois Shines. We've got a video from an outside source that's wonderful that explains what a REC is and how that works. And then we have a brief value proposition about how Illinois Shines can help your business. Very importantly, we share some steps and information on requirements to become approved vendors so that you can understand all that goes into your participation, all of the guidelines and requirements that you'll be required to follow, and some of the source resources and materials that inform that role as an approved vendor. We're continuing to update and organize this page, so check back soon. We also share requirements to become a designee who work for and with approved vendors in various roles, including sales and marketing, disclosure form distribution, installation, and more. And we share those requirements. And finally, we share a special form of an approved vendor, which is an equity eligible contractor, and we link to more information at that page. So let's take a look at that, which is next in the tab. CEJA, or the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, established the equity accountability system to expand access to the clean energy economy. And one of the major components of that for Illinois Shines was the establishment of an equity eligible contractor category. That allows select vendors to apply for certification as an EEC and to participate in the program, including some benefits with access to a dedicated category to submit project capacity, ability to request an advance of capital, and more. We also have EEC designees and subcontractors and some specific benefits and opportunities for them. And the page continues by outlining the steps to become a certified equity eligible contractor and what you can expect in that process. We make note that there is a dedicated sector strategist on the program administrator, an equity eligible contractor strategist available to support and provide guidance, including things like the mentorship program and more. And then some information and criteria for becoming an equity eligible contractor, which also apply to the definition of an equity eligible person, which is central to the EEC certification as well as the minimum equity standard. We'll talk about that just a moment. We have some information on job training programs that are also applicable to some of the criteria to become an equity eligible contractor. I mentioned the equity accountability system, and I want to spend just a few moments on this very important area. This was established following CEJA, and it amended the Illinois Power Act to expand access to the clean energy economy for both businesses and workers from communities that have historically been excluded from economic opportunity in the energy sector, subject to disproportionate levels of pollution, and disproportionately experience negative public health outcomes. The equity accountability system offers a number of important pillars, but most centrally for the Illinois Shines program establishes minimum equity standard applicable to all applicants to the agency's renewable energy procurements. We'll talk about that in a moment. And as previously described, the equity eligible contractor established. So more information about all of the equity objectives here. The agency offers a wealth of information about its diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and you should take a look at that. I also want to point out that in support of equity accountability system efforts and initiatives, the agency manages the Energy Workforce Equity Portal, which is a public-facing tool and an opportunity for interested workforce, equity eligible persons, and employers to connect about opportunities for employment and training in the equity category and opportunities, including Illinois Shines. The minimum equity standard is a requirement that minimum percentages of participating entities' workforces are comprised of equity eligible persons. It was launched in program year 23-24, and up through 2030, the year 2030, the percentage required of comprising minimum, of equity eligible persons of a project workforce will escalate up to 30% each year. So the program guidebook following the long-term plan establishes that escalating percentage each year. And this section includes resources on how to understand the EAS and the minimum equity standard, some of the relevant forms, samples, and other information, FAQs, and more. There are further definitions here on equity eligible persons and equity eligible contractors and job training programs. I mentioned earlier the access and ability to request advance of capital, and there's some information on equity investment eligible communities relevant to the EEP definitions. And finally, the equity accountability system has been the subject of several stakeholder feedback requests, and those are linked here. So very important. Finally, we have a link to the Prevailing Wage Hub. It's a minimum compensation level set by the Illinois Department of Labor for construction activities related to public works, including those developed through Illinois Shines. The program projects are subject to prevailing wage requirements with a few exceptions, notably residential DG distributed generation projects, DG projects serving a house of worship not exceeding 100 kilowatt AC, and waitlisted non-residential large DG projects as of or before December 14th, 2021. But take a look at the Prevailing Wage Hub and some of the resources there that link to Illinois Department of Labor. Okay, we're going to move to a very important section, AV and designee resources, and I want to start right in. We've got program documents, project category hubs, consumer protection requirements and resources, mentorship program, portal updates, program help guides and application tips, and vendor FAQs. So let's get right to it. Program documents is in many ways the heart of the website for prospective and participating vendors. It shares critical documentation that outlines the guidelines and rules that are governing the construction of the Illinois Shines program, but also the participation of vendors. That's at its heart got a 2-year long-term renewable resources procurement plan updated every 2 years. It explains how the agency and its procurements will fulfill the requirements of the Illinois Renewable Portfolio Standard and eventually informs the development of the program guidebook. Each Illinois Shines program year is supported by a program year guidebook. It may get updated throughout the year, but it generally is launched with a edition at the beginning of the year, and it shares all of the rules, requirements, expectations, and guidelines for successful and compliant participation in the program. Vendors will frequently hear references to requirements in the program guidebook that govern participation and duties that must be fulfilled in the program. Similarly, the Consumer Protection Handbook, which covers both Illinois Shines and Illinois Solar for All, outlines the very rigorous and important consumer protection guidelines, rules, and requirements for participating entities to ensure that customers are safeguarded and that vendors are following all of the rules of the program and protections that have been built in. So these resources, including archives, are there. We have the most recent renewable energy credit or REC contract samples that are here. In some cases, as you'll see here, we have forthcoming updated REC amendments, and those are shared as well for reference and again in archive. The REC prices that inform the pricing for each of the block categories development for capacity are listed at the program website. Disclosure forms are a required component of the program, which allow consumers to understand the terms of their offer and their system and financing, and to compare pricing between offers and vendor contract offers are included here. We have informational brochures, minimum contract requirements that must be part of REC contracts developed by vendors, consumer protection resources will spend more, a link to Prevailing Wage Hub, and some other resources and forums. You can find those here. Let's dive really quickly into project category hubs. The program, forgive me, has 6 project categories across distributed generation and community solar, just small distributed generation, large distributed generation, traditional community solar, community-driven community solar, public schools, which might be either DG or CS, and equity eligible contractors we mentioned earlier, which can participate in either and develop projects in either DG or CS in the category. This page shares some of the capacity allocation for the block each year, and it shares links to those contract requirements. Each of the category hubs then includes information about the category and some resources specific to that category, blog updates, and more. So take a look at all of the blogs and hub pages for the categories that you're participating in. We do have some quick links for vendors related to some of the key consumer protection requirements and resources. Again, linking to the plan guidebook and handbook, contract requirements, all of which vendors are responsible for complying with. And then some other resources, we'll talk about these, including the disciplinary component of the program and the program violations report, complaints reports, and more. We have a Help for Stranded Customers initiative supporting customers whose vendors are unwilling or unable to complete the project application or development of the solar project, and more, and blog updates and other resources. So take a look at that. There's information about net metering, which most recently changed in Illinois in early 2025. So take a look there. And then again, information about the required disclosure forms and more. We'll talk about those in just a moment. The mentorship program is part of our efforts to advance the diversity, equity, and inclusion objectives of CEJA, and it was implemented in the last program year, and it continues to be available to eligible and interested parties and provides resources for understanding the program and direct dialogue with mentors who can facilitate successful participation to new and prospective parties in the program. So some very important resources here that this team is familiar with. Very quickly, the program portal, which supports generation and upload of disclosure forms, but also project applications, is outlined here, and a portal development roadmap reveals some of the recent and forthcoming development that can be expected, and a blog update shares details on development and software updates that are implemented every couple weeks for the program portal. Finally, we've got a rich page of program help guides and application tips. These are videos, PDFs, and PowerPoint presentations that address important topics and step vendors through some of the processes and questions they may have about each of these areas of program requirement. So take a look. This page is continually updated with new resources. Lastly, we have a rich set of vendor FAQs across topics related to development of solar in Illinois, specifically through Illinois Shines, and some of the topics that we've talked about. So a rich library of FAQs, and again, those are also updated regularly. Finally, the vendor updates tab. This includes a few key components you should be familiar with. Key dates and deadlines serves as a program calendar, and it lists items in these categories from portal releases, learning events, support that's available, meeting opportunities, feedback requests, deadlines, and holidays. Take a look at those. It's regularly updated. Program updates houses all program announcements, and these include weekly program announcements that span all program news, all category specific updates that are timely and are continuously updated. So take a look at those and make sure you're subscribed. They also house some special announcements, which are standalone announcements on key topics, including reminders, invitations for stakeholder participation, and more. We also send segmented announcements for different project category participating vendors related to events, opportunities, or requirements specific to that category. Just a couple more things here. The program does host webinars throughout the program year, including a program year welcome webinar, and then some additional webinars on topics as appropriate and timely. For each of the webinars, recording, presentation slides, and Q&A are available. You can access those in the library. And finally, we've got a link to the block capacity dashboard, which we'll look at in just a moment. All right, we want to get back to this side of the website for consumers, customers, and other interested stakeholders. We've got a Solar and Shines basics section. It explains for those who need it just a basic understanding of how solar works and how solar energy is generated, including some links to some technical resources. We move very quickly into an explanation of how Illinois Shines incentive works. So how does the funding of the program translate into incentives that are typically passed on by vendors through creative financing that the program allows in its categories, or through lower subscription costs for community solar. So some explanation of how that works, again, a link to that rec video, some of the value propositions of going solar, but specifically Illinois Shines, and then looking into the Illinois Shines project categories. So let's take a look at those. As I mentioned, let's use this link. The program supports development in two primary categories: distributed generation and community solar. And within those 6 project types, which we reviewed, small and large DG, traditional community solar and community driven, public schools, and the equity eligible contractor category. And we're going to take a closer look at each of those. We do have a little bit of technical information. We want our customers to understand how projects are developed and some of the factors that can inform the effectiveness and performance of their system, and also to be aware of the disclosure forms that they're entitled to and which are required by the program that allow them to compare offers between vendors. So let's explore a little bit more. Again, we want to introduce everybody to those project types, starting with distributed generation, which is typically on rooftop or on-site, including ground mount, forgive me. And we have some definitions of how distributed generation works, how Illinois Shines projects produce REC incentives for DG projects. And then we have a number of resources, including how to think about your specific goals and considerations, how to find a vendor you're comfortable with, including resources at the program website, things to look for in a bid, and questions to consider asking your vendors to understand the proposed system and the terms of your offer. We also outline some of the financing options that are available in Illinois Shines, including system purchase, lease, and power purchase agreements, and some relative distinctions between those. So we share that. That may be helpful. And then finally, we link consumers to resources to help them find an approved vendor, designee, or subcontractor in the program. That's one of the value propositions of the program, is the vetting and registration process to become an approved vendor or designee or EEC subcontractor in the program. And we want to explain that to consumers and customers and share links to resources so that they can verify that you're a certified and registered vendor in the program. We also want folks to explore community solar if they're unable or not ideal to have rooftop or on-site solar. And these are large solar projects in utility territories with multiple subscribers. So same structure, but some different considerations from the financial overview and commitment, how to choose a community solar project and look at some of the available options there. And again, the kinds of questions you should ask and specific to a community solar subscription. We have resources and links to find those projects. We also have a link to a sister program that's overseen by the Illinois Power Agency. That's Illinois Solar for All. So we're really equipping our customers with a lot of information. We believe informed, educated consumers and customers will be the best satisfied customers in the program and for everybody's benefit. So the program website makes a lot of opportunities. I do want to share some consumer resources designed to augment that education. We mentioned disclosure forms, which are required by the program. And we offer a tool here with tool tips to step through a disclosure form and see and understand the kind of information that's included there as a requirement of the program. It's also helpful for vendors to take a look at and understand. We've become aware that vendors make use of these as well too. So distributed generation forms along with some of the brochures are supporting educated consumers who are interested in solar. We have a consumer protection hub, again, a very important part of the program to protect consumers. We want them to understand their rights and the obligations of participating entities in the program. If there are complaints lodged or filed against a vendor, those are investigated and taken seriously by the program with an attempt to resolve them. We do link to the program violations report, the consumer complaint report, and more. And those are noted here. And they have their own page, the program violations and complaints report. So we want to make it easy for customers to understand if there have been complaints and the outcome and resolution of those investigations. Further on, we do have help for stranded customers. Again, if a solar vendor becomes unable or unwilling to fulfill its duties in completing an application process or a project. So we do list vendors here who are willing to support customers who have become stranded, and that's an important resource in the hub. We have a consumer protection working group populated by vendors and customers and community groups and more who are interested to discuss topics of great interest in the consumer protection arena for Illinois Shines and Illinois Solar for All. So take a look. This group meets on the first Friday of each month, and your participation is invited. There are a number of active consumer protection initiatives to continue to add guardrails to the program, and those include an escrow process, a solar restitution program, and a stranded customer rec adder. So take a look at these. These are being developed as we speak, and there will be updates at this page, so take a look. And finally, we link to the Consumer Complaint Center. And again, if a consumer does believe they've been subject to a violation of a program requirement, they can file a complaint with the program. They're also free to file a complaint with the Illinois Commerce Commission or the Illinois Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. We will investigate the complaints filed with the program, including reaching out to vendors to fact find and understand what may have happened toward working toward resolution. We have consumer FAQs, and we have accessible versions of our program brochures, so take a look at those. I want to move quickly to the reports and data section of the program website. Very important. The block capacity dashboard details a breakout of project capacity for each of the Illinois Shines project categories. It has a live updated chart that shows the available capacity or allocated or batched or submitted capacity, so different subcategories. You can take a look at that, very helpful for project development. This chart details the final block capacity that was allocated for the program year, including any that may have been rolled over and reallocated, so that gives you your starting point. Finally, we have wait lists for each of the project categories. When capacity is exhausted for a program year, a wait list is started for that project category until new capacity becomes available the following program year, which is June 1st, and then the projects on the wait list receive top priority for allocation of capacity. So take a look at the block capacity dashboard very quickly. Project application reports let you know where the program administrator is on reviewing batches of paid and submitted applications across project categories. And it also shows on a weekly basis, this week or last week, our specific activity in processing applications in each of the project categories. So take a look at that. The project map, very helpful for developers, lets you dynamically enter data and filter and visually see the projects developed through Illinois Shines, either energized or not energized, across each of the project categories, geography, project size, and more. So this is a dynamic tool you can look, also very helpful for developers. And finally, we've added a new Illinois Shines data report, and that shares some select data for projects participation and impacts data for both the program year to date through the last month end of the program's date, the report's date, and lifetime program to date for Illinois Shines that you're all contributing to. So this is an exciting new report that's available. I want to spend just a moment at the About page. We've got some information about the program for interested parties, could include media, legislators, and more. We share some end of the year program reports with all of the amazing data and project and impact that is generated through your participation in Illinois Shines. We also have state of the program reports that update our reaction and response to feedback received by the market and opportunities for improvement that we're considering to the program and other progress and initiatives. So take a look at the About page. You can learn a little bit about the Illinois Power Agency and more. Very quickly, we have media and press information for interested journalists and reporters and outlets that may wish to cover the program. And very importantly, I mentioned stakeholder feedback earlier. We do elicit feedback through the program on behalf of the Illinois Power Agency across a variety of topics. A call for stakeholder feedback may be issued that helps the agency develop policies, procedures, and protocols with the input of the marketplace, which is taken under consideration across these topics, you can see. And for each of these, we archive the stakeholder feedback request. We list public responses that were received and more. So very important, and we'll be updating this page soon to highlight the most current feedback requests that are currently active and more. There's one tool here I want to connect you to. That's the project status tool, project lookup tool, forgive me. And for distributed generation projects, by sharing either the application ID, disclosure form ID, or customer email address, you're able to see the status of a specific project and where it stands in the application review and process. This is a reminder about the program steps that each application goes through, including Part 1 review, commission review, contract execution, installation energization, Part 2 review, and then contracting utility paying approved vendors for the verified recs. So that's most of the website. We do have a link to the program portal. You can see that here. That takes you away from the website, again, where disclosure forms are uploaded and submitted, and where project applications are submitted, and more. That's it for our website tour today. There's more to share, but please dive in, take a look. Also, check back. We're in the midst of some major enhancements to the website to update it and organize information and share new content, graphics, utilities, and more. So please take a look at illinoisshines.com. Thank you for helping to build it, helping to improve it. And we look forward to your successful compliant participation in Illinois Shines.